the way it started really was like everybody. You start with one boat, then you get a second boat, then you get a third boat, and you have to keep it fun, and you have to keep it entertaining, you have to keep it interesting. And I was not being entertained, and it wasn't interesting anymore. So, like I always say, I could have sold everything, buy a helicopter. Helicopters are very interesting, or do something different. So I said, let's do something different. Right?
So,
We are in Arizona, 364 days a year of sunshine, incredibly hot in summer, but you can go swimming. We can sail literally again all year round. And I figured, okay, let's try something different. And that's how Tiller and Kites was born, namely as a sailing school, but then expanded much more to include events and racing and instruction, and bring in professional instruction, because obviously we have a deficiency of talent. And I use that term loosely, because we're not in San Francisco, we're not in San Diego, we're not, Miami, Charleston, where all the pros would be. So we bring them here instead, and upgrade, just really upgrade the level of sailing in Arizona.
so let me go back a little bit to the beginning. You and me have been friends for a little bit now, and I know we shared our passion for sailing and car racing. But actually, you were a diehard car racing racer, and then one day that was gone. So tell me a little bit what happened. Like, you were going 140 miles down the straight, and then you decide, okay, okay, miles an hour, and then that changed, and now you are also a diehard sailboat racer.
Right. With the cars, you start here. In fact, the first race car I was racing in Arizona was a $200 Toyota MR2. And then by 6 months later, it had a Formula Atlantic engine in it. And this thing would beat Vipers of Porsches. A lot of fun. And you keep upgrading different cars. So I probably had 10 or 12 different cars over the course, ending up with a Can-Am car, the big V8 in the back. So you progress, but even that and it was always a business. It was fun, but I always ran it as a business, and it was somewhat self-supporting. But in the end, you've pretty much done what you're going to do, and how long do I want to keep doing this for? And then again, at 190 miles an hour, bad things can happen to you. Right? I've made it this far. I'm good. I don't know if you can see it. My helmet is still.
You're still there.
Yeah. So I kept that, and it was enough. You reach an end, and saying, I've done what I've set out to accomplish. Whether it was track records or winning club series and so forth. So that was good. And then took a number of years off, actually any sport, till 10 years ago. I think I was at Club Med, and they had Hobie waves. I can do that. And needless to say, I never got off the Hobie wave, and they had an F-16, believe it or not, and Hobie 16s. I just sailed and sailed and sailed and sailed. Did nothing but sail the entire vacation. And then the following year, I did the same thing. I said, look, now I'm buying a boat. So that's when I got the J24, and then followed by an Accra, then followed by another J24. And that's how the whole thing started. But yeah, blame it on Club Med and Hobie waves.
And you grew up in Malta.
Yes.
Correct? So.
Correct.
But you were sailing there also?
Yes, in Malta, the boats back then, I don't know if you're familiar with them, was the Mirror 10. A little English plywood boats. All of us had one, and we had 4 seasons, right? With the spring, summer, winter, and fall racing series. Very active, 10, 12, 15 boats, and we just compete. And when we're not racing, we're sailing the boats like they were cruising boats, going 5 miles offshore in a 10-foot dinghy, because we didn't know any better. But okay, let's sail to Sicily. Maybe not, but we would have gone. So, you're 15, 16, afraid of nothing. So we sailed very hard, and we learned a lot. So that was a very fun boat to sail. In fact, every now and then, one of them might pop up on Craigslist, and I get tempted to, but nah, never. So, the sailing was really good, and I did win a national regatta on a Mirror, long time ago. So.
Oh, so you got started pretty young. So going back to Tiller and Kites, I know that you have gone from one of 2 of what you call the mermaids, okay, your
Yeah.
faithfully pink J24s, fluor pink,
Very
and
big.
now you are to tens of boats as part of the Tiller and Kites program. How that works? Like you guys are getting more boats as more people are approaching you to go sailing. What triggers the need to keep growing the fleet?
Well, like you said, it did start with one J24, then it became a second J24, of which by themselves, two J24s in Arizona is irrelevant, right? Clean them up, sort them out, paint them pink. Suddenly everybody knows your J24s. Now you're starting to build on relevance, right? So that there has to be some method to the madness. And you know, if I have to say in Arizona, people say, "Oh, do you know about those pink J24s?" I'm like, "Yes, they're mine." Yes, you make a lot of friends. You make a lot of friends along the way, which is great. The idea behind, again, adding up to, I think we're up to about 14 J24s. We've got 7 stars, 6 Sabbats, 12 Coronado 15s, 2 Capri 37s. I'll tell you about those later. You know, and a few other boats. Was how do you make sailing accessible, available, and relevant to what people want to do? And obviously, owning a boat is the big part of it. But for us to own, you know, X amount of boats is not that much harder than one person owning one boat, right? So I can own probably 10 boats with the same stress level as somebody who has maybe one boat, because of where they're stored, how we use them, and so forth. And most importantly, is they would be available for people to actually improve the sailing and, you know, grow the sport in a very, very different way. Namely, nobody has to make a decision except the boat owner. In this case, we own all the boats, so it becomes very easy. If you propose something to do in the desert, it'll take me 2 minutes to make a decision, maybe 2 seconds. Whereas to try and put on events and so forth, very, very hard if you don't have the boats available. So that's how we tried to change things around, is by first acquiring all the boats.
So
Needless to say, yeah.
You have the fleet ready to go. How people get assigned? Is there is a club to be member of, or you do it on a weekend basis? Where I approach you or the organization and say, "Hey, I have a team that wants to race this weekend." Walk me through the process.
Well, the process, again, the nice thing about not having, well, first, obviously, this year just completely disappeared.
Correct.
Everything we had planned, you know, forget it. So it gives us time to work on the boats and do different things. The idea is either our own events, where we say, let's just do a J24, for example, a one design. Do a race, invite the fleets from California, from Texas, you know, Colorado, just basically the Southwest or from wherever. And you don't have to bring anything with you other than, you know, flip-flops and the cap. Because we always sail in flip-flops, except maybe in February. You want to bring your sails? Fine, bring your sails, and our sails, we try and match them as best as possible. You know, you can fly in for a wonderful weekend, and the racing, we always make the racing part of the event. It's not the highlight of the event. We always add a lot more. We did an event last year before we closed up, and it starts off, we go to NASCAR racing in Phoenix on Friday. So we go to night racing, watch the trucks race, come up to the lake, start racing the boats, and then, you know, there's always something else happening to make really fun events and enjoy Arizona. It could be a small event, right? It could be somebody who wants to do a match racing event, or they want to try match racing. So we can do it anything from a Sabbath to a Capri 37. Why? Because the boats are always there and they're always available. And then ideally you start working with, you know, your company and other companies, whether it's pro events, whether it's pro training, whether it's advanced training. The issue is always, how do you get 10 boats? You don't pretty much anywhere, right? In this case, 10 Js, you want to do something very specific to stars. I think we have about 7 of them, right? So they'll all be equalized. So anybody who's coming gets a quality boat, you know, on a lake. The climate is practically guaranteed. The wind isn't. but you can host those events. So those will be sublet. We basically just step out of the way. We just provide the boats and equipment and, you know, speedboats and race marks and everything else. So it allows others to do things here that they couldn't do in Chicago in February, for example.
Okay, so all boats are equalized, and then basically it doesn't matter what boat I'm getting for the event. We're starting by the assumption that all boats have the same speed, the same equipment, pretty much all are taken care the same way, correct?
If I said absolutely correct, yes, no, but you know, there's always slight variances, but we try and find them and adjust accordingly. But yes, essentially the boats will be optimized as close to one design as you can possibly.
You also hold a sailing school there, correct?
Yes.
So this is tied all together, like the fleet and the school act as one?
To a degree. To a degree. Most of the school is relatively new people sailing, right? And the advantage is they get to start already on, generally we start on a J24, right? Which is more than most schools would normally start with. So I don't need to mention what types of boats, but we already start on a very well sorted, very well balanced boat. It also gives them the opportunity within the process to switch to other boats during the basic course. And they're all done as private lessons, so we don't do groups. But I've had many students who go out on a J24 and we finish on the Capri 37, which is, I mean, tremendous for any sailing school. So you get, you know, bigger boat feel and big wheel and the big inboard diesel as a little outboard. So they get a really good experience and idea of what sailing is and what it could be because of that flexibility. Then going beyond there, you don't just take the money, give them a little certificate, congratulations, you're a sailor. You have now boats and events to keep them sailing, which I think is the most important part.
So if somebody else would like to try the concept of building a fleet from a club organization, besides the initial investment, how that keeps paying for itself? How is it structured to keep building the fleet and be self-sufficient in a way of going forward?
I mean, other than, you know, if you want to be a millionaire in sailing, you know, start as a billionaire. I mean, everybody knows that. I think it's just a different mentality, right? Which if you took it from a club perspective, and you know, I've been on the board of our club, it's very monolithic. Okay, you have your membership, you have this, you know, fees are low, and so on and so forth, which is great, at least in our environment, but it doesn't give you the reality of sailing. And it's not a cheap sport. Right now, we have a lot of youth sailing also, and to my surprise, I think hockey is more expensive than sailing. Right, so your kids playing hockey or your kids go sailing. Sailing is actually less expensive. At least that's what. So it has to be purpose driven, and you have to look at it as a business. But a business is not the above all and end all. Right, so the cost of acquisition of the boats, you know, how you maintain them, where you keep them, and so forth. So you have your budget set out. When you're doing it on a larger scale, surprisingly, the cost per boat obviously is a lot less than if you had one boat, right? So if we're buying halyards, we don't buy, you know, 60 feet. We buy 1,600 feet. At which point, you know, your cost is a fraction of what it is in just buying, you know, pre-cut pieces and so on. But that's just us. You want to move into more specific things, then, you know, I call you and say, hey, I need these specific things for this boat. Then you do it that way. Or we need them for all 10, but it goes back to the same thing. Buying for 10, your cost per boat is less. So, you know, insuring the boats, maintaining the boats, repairing the boats, on an individual basis, it does get expensive. As a group, it does. And those savings then get passed on to people. So your events and usage are really not, you know, priced ridiculously high. And the boats, it makes the boats and sailing, I think, somewhat affordable.
So, where do you see it going? You have grown from a couple of boats to now a decent sized fleet, and the name is well known, and obviously the pink boats are recognized anywhere. How how we can support you and how the community can build it up on your own experience, how that can be taken to other areas where they also are seeing a little bit of decrease, or actually a lot of decrease on participation, and how this idea will bring it back.
One of the underlying motivations to me was always relevance, right? So, and again, I'm in Arizona. I'm a Maltese guy in Arizona. I mean, you couldn't get stranger than that, but here I am. Arizona in sailing is not relevant in the grand scheme of things. I get it. If we do this right, you could be talking to somebody, oh, we're thinking of doing this. And you'll go, you know what? You need to go to Arizona. And they'll start laughing. And then you'll tell them, no, stop laughing. Let me tell you what you can do over there. And these are all things you couldn't do elsewhere. Right? You just couldn't do elsewhere. So for me, the success is not necessarily the personal, given a choice between fame and fortune, I prefer fortune, but, fame is okay, I guess, but I'm not really that interested in that. But it's more relevance for the state, and it's also relevance for people. Like, I am fairly sure the next Olympic gold medalist was born 3 years ago in Phoenix. You don't know it, US Sailing don't know it, nobody knows it, unless somebody gives that kid an opportunity to be on a sailboat, right?
Right.
So having, again, those things here where fortunately, yes, we're not Charleston, we're not Miami, we're not San Francisco. I get it, we're none of those. So it is actually a very open territory for us to try things that are different, to maybe go a little bit against the grain, to maybe make a few changes and modifications to, how things are done based on maybe what people want. So do we change up a regatta format? Do we change up a race format? Do we try things that, people might talk about, but you couldn't do them? The answer is you can do it in Arizona. We'll try it.
Yeah,
so
your idea have a different twist, because in those places that you just mentioned, yes, you might go to a community sailing center and go sailing, but that's not what you are doing. Based on my experience and seeing you guys grow, you have a race-ready boat that anybody can go and race properly. This is not a club boat for an entry level. This is something that I can race with my regular crew and not feel bad of racing that boat. I don't have to go and work on the boat. No, I just get there, say hi to you and everybody else, and then go racing without having to tow the boat. And that's something interesting for me, because especially now when we survey sailors, say, oh, I don't have time. No, for some reason, our days has become shorter over the last 20 years, and now we have less time. So if I can fly and go sailing as opposed to towing my boat for 12 or 20 hours to go racing, obviously I will take that alternative, which is great in Arizona. And I'm trying to see how we can help bringing the same model to other areas, not necessarily the big cities that you just named it, but there is many places where the model can be duplicated and executed properly. So we can race in many venues under the same format. Right now, we can only do it with you and Tiller and Kites. It's not that I can go to any other city and find that same principle.
True, and if you take the major sailing centers, right? We mentioned, let's say like Miami, Charleston, Rhode Island, San Francisco, San Diego, Long Beach, and so forth. They're so well catered to, right? They have everything. They've got the marina, they've got the PRO, they have everything, right? This necessarily would not work there. But that leaves the rest of the country. It leaves the entire country, and where people are sailing, you could be sailing in Oklahoma, you could be sailing in Texas, in Arizona, you could be sailing in Idaho. There are a lot of places where you could, but we don't get the attention, obviously, the major ones do. And that attention doesn't work over here, right? You don't walk around on the docks at Lake Pleasant and bump into, Kostecki and Dennis Conner and this one as you would in San Diego and San. These people aren't here, right? So we don't have that access and those people. So what do we do to make this place interesting and then have them come here?
Yeah, but you have an interesting twist because in all those places, and after sailing for almost 40 years, 99% of the places where you can go with boats that are not yours are going to be through being a member of a club.
Exactly.
Where your program brings something that completely different. I can go and try sailing and get into sailing before being a member of a club.
Correct.
So the process is less intimidating and is an easier path to, okay, let's try sailing. But let's try sailing not on a entry-level boat. Let's try sailing on a real racing boat, race-ready boat, and we can participate on an event pretty much from the get-go. And yes, we will get help from somebody else, but it doesn't require me or anybody at that point to be a member of an established club or group to get access to what you are offering. And that's what it calls for attention and make it so interesting for me is like, is the easiest, less steps from I want to go sailing to be on the boat. I can think about it. It's like almost nothing in between the desire and the action. No? And
Right.
the
So
opportunity being there.
right. Instead of having a community sailing center, you have a center for the sailing community.
There you go. I like that.
Right. It's completely the opposite. As opposed to here are our boats, whether they're FJs, Opties, and you come in and you do your thing and then you never see them again. This would be the opposite. It's a community, a center for the sailing community. So it could be the folks in Chicago in February. It's like, oh, we've got to go sailing.
What is interesting about your program is that you have not started by trying to appeal to the younger crowd, but all the contrary, is to the folks of 45, 50, which now have a little bit more time, and that's why it's not a dinghy that I will go sailing, it's a keel boat. Like it or not, it's a good platform to get started, easy to sail with a lot of information and a lot of people capable of sailing.
Right, and you see. I mean, you read the same things I do, and you see the same newsletters. So there's always, an outreach to something, right? The latest, and we need to outreach this. No, you don't. You just need to be there, and you need to be relevant. And those who are interested in sailing, they will find you. They will come to you. So trying to say we need more of this, or we need more youth, or we need more. I don't see that as a really great path to follow, right? Whereas if you're there and there is somebody who might be in sailing, whether they're a young person or an older person, doesn't matter who. But if you offer something good and relevant, they will find you. And the good sailors will emerge, and you'll see those who are much better than others. I mean, I see it in the school. Some people who you can spend, a month to perfect the tack, and there are others who just act brilliantly on day one. They get it. So those are the people who stay with you a lot longer. So now you need to give them something. Keep sailing. Keep sailing.
Now that we got the interest of the sailing community, Mike is open for you to invite everybody to go there and try it.
I think everybody should. I think Arizona is a fabulous place. Maybe not in August. Unless you want to try sailing, and we did it once in, it was 121 degrees. So that's what, 48, 49 Celsius.
I would be
Yeah, that was just a test to see if Dacron will actually explode, but it didn't. So it was very, very harsh. But that's our equivalent of sailing in the lower 40s. Very, very hot. You survive it. Generally, we don't do much sailing in August, but the rest of the year it's a fabulous place. There's a lot to see. There's a lot to do in Arizona, and that's what we try and encompass and include for anybody who visits. And most importantly, it's just be ready to sail, right? We could have 2 knots, we could have 30 knots on our lake. You never know what's going to happen. Enjoy the sailing, learn, and more importantly, if you know more than the next guy, help them along. Teach them a bit, show them new tricks, new things they can do. And I think together, a lot of individuals could make it for a wonderful, wonderful sailing community. And our access to boats, I think, helps that a lot.
Well, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate everything you are doing for the sailing community. I've been a guest of your hospitality, which is amazing, and hanging around there. But definitely, you guys are growing, and I think you are going the right path. So I hope everybody can learn a little bit more about what you're doing, and anything we can do to help, we're always, well, now a Zoom away. We used to say a chat away, but now we're a Zoom away. And once again, let us know how we can help you, and more than happy to promote anything that you are doing, because I think it's a great idea, it's a great program.
I truly appreciate it. And I'm glad that you've known us, since the beginning, since I had one boat. So you've seen what we've done, and you've always been a very good support. You've been a great source of information. I always call you when I have a strange question or a strange idea. And I say, come on, what do you think of this idea? So sometimes you say don't, or sometimes you say run with it. So I always appreciate your kindness to us and to sailing and to the sport in general. So
anytime, my friend.
Many thanks.
Okay, Victor, a pleasure.
Brilliant.
And just let's keep sailing.
Thanks, Juan.
Thank you.
Yeah.